Okay.
Bill, appreciate you coming in today and being part of our class. Thanks so much.
You bet. You bet.
So you owned franchises in Valvoline Oil Change, the one in Cavalle here on Denton Tap, and you owned several others. How did you get into that? First of all, what was the entry fee? What was it like?
Sure. Well, I've been in automotive industry and as a corporate guy most of my life. I worked for a company called Chief Auto Parts. We sold Chief to AutoZone, and I was looking for something to do. I actually knew the Valvoline people very well, which makes it easier, right? Because at one point I was a buyer with Chief, so I had a good relationship with the Valvoline.
Okay.
They had a pretty low cost of entry because they were partnering with Citibank, and they had 100% guaranteed loan that I could pick up for nothing down. So
what does that mean?
That's an offer I can't refuse.
What does it mean?
Sorry?
100% guaranteed loan. What does that mean?
It means they co-signed on the loan. My credit was good, but there was no hassle going through the process. There was no down on the loan. They were aggressively trying to grow their franchise. So, and a brick and mortar franchise, I mean, financing is incredibly important because to build any kind of brick and mortar these days is very expensive.
Okay.
It was this was back in 2003. And I think the building alone cost about $900,000.
Oh my goodness. And that was the one in Cavalle, correct?
No, that's the one in Valley Ranch.
Okay.
I acquired Cavalle as it was actually a pre-existing oil change, quick lube, and I acquired that. I spent about $1 million on that, I think.
Okay, so the one on Valley Ranch, 900 grand for the structure, which is where you got a loan on, and you didn't have, I mean, even if your credit would have been terrible, it didn't matter because Valvoline was willing to 100% guarantee the loan. Why would they do that? Why is the company do that?
They're not doing it anymore. back in the 90s, they had just entered the market. They were trying to ramp it up as quickly as they could. And that was one way they had decided they could ramp it up. You know, obviously, they wouldn't take somebody with bad credit, right? It was a risk that they would take if they qualified me and they looked at me and they looked at my background, and they look at your personal net worth, all those things any franchise does, and said, this guy's a good risk. We'll do the loan with him. And that's how they approached it. It worked for them a lot of times, and frankly, a few times they got burned doing it.
Okay. And I mean, is that similar to what maybe the housing industry went through in the 2000s too, where people were getting loans that maybe couldn't qualify? Were there people that were getting these franchises that maybe they were kind of taking a risk on to some degree?
There were, because they just made a strategic decision a couple of years before I got in that they wanted to be in this business. They acquired a small chain in the Midwest, can't remember the name, 15 or 20 units, but they were just in a very aggressive growth mode.
Okay.
And they made the decision at the time that they were going to grow through franchising. They had corporate stores, but they really wanted to focus on franchise because, as you know, their return on investment on franchising is very good.
Yeah.
So they were, it was a wild, wild west for a while. They probably were in that mode for 3 or 4 years. They started to build a base. The reputation started to grow, and they were able to dial back on their risk quotient and get really a lot of people that had existing franchises in other industries to come over and pick it up.
So 900 grand for the structure, and then what was maybe the rest of the startup potential costs within the franchise, and was that all covered by the loan?
It was all covered by the loan. On that particular site, I had a ground lease.
And what is a ground lease?
Ground lease means it's kind of like if you would lease a house, but you're leasing the dirt only. So it was a piece of dirt, about an acre. And the landlord says, all right, I'll let you build on this. Of course, you have to qualify. And then I have like a 30-year lease on that one.
And that's similar to what, I mean, my students watch The Founder with Ray Kroc, and his ability to control franchises by owning the ground underneath the structure, becoming the largest real estate provider in the country or whatever. So really you own the structure on the property, but the lease underneath, you have to lease the land from a landlord.
From a developer, correct.
A developer, okay.
That happens, that's happened. I don't want to get in the weeds with you, but that is becoming more the rule than the exception. That used to be the exception rather than the rule.
Okay.
But for two reasons, real estate in Dallas Fort Worth and in any fast growing cities is, to get a commercial piece of a good corner is going to be 30 bucks a foot. So that ramps up pretty quick. But the landowners have decided they don't really want to give up the land anymore. So it's probably, I can't substantiate this, but I looked at a lot of dirt. Probably 80% are now ground leases for the good locations.
Okay, so let's take, for instance, the Valley Ranch. In this day and age, right now, what would be the monthly lease on that size of a lot?
Probably 12,000 a month, so say 144 a year.
Just for the dirt.
Just for the dirt, but it's a prime site. I mean that store by last year I owned it at $2.5 million, which is a good store for it's like 2,800 square foot building.
So the gross revenue on that one Valvoline oil change was $2.5 million per year.
Right.
Wow. Okay. And then you've got a mortgage payment as well on the structure as well. And so you do that one at Valley Ranch and it goes well. And then you decide to start acquiring other, why?
Good return. I mean, the reason I got into business was the margins they're not as good now as they were then because everybody got into the business, but the margins, 30% EBITDA was not out of the question.
Right. Who's your biggest competitor? Like with Valvoline, like, I mean, we used to go get our oil changed at Walmart for a long time because it was so expensive and because you could go shop while you were there or whatever. But, their line is around the corner for, so to us, like quick lube or whatever the one is on
Quick car probably.
Yes. Right. And on the one, because they do the inspections as well. So we go there and it's expensive. It's 45 bucks now for an oil change. Is that just kind of like, is that incredibly profitable? I mean, you're paying for staff, you're paying for oil, and then the upsells, man, they're terrific at upsells because I don't know anything about cars. The air filter is whatever, the windshield wipers need to be replaced. I mean, it's like they seem to find the ways to offer complementary products. Is that part of the business plan?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really make a lot of money on an oil change. I mean, it's really, you probably get a zillion coupons in the mail for a cheap oil change, right? So the oil change itself, if you get full price for an oil change, you'll make a decent margin, but very few of our customers didn't have we email them coupons every month.
Right.
So the margin is on the ancillary items and like the Valvoline system, and I'm sure like Take 5 is another growing chain, but the Valvoline system, you would put the customer's VIN number, vehicle identification number into the system. And once you vehicle, so that would marry up to what the original equipment manufacturer like Ford would say that vehicle needs. So if you came in and it had been 10,000 miles since your air filter, we would say, well, Ford recommends it's time for an air filter change. Would you like to do that? And that's really so it becomes it's an oil change. Oil change is the milk and eggs right at the grocery store.
Right.
But everything else is what you walk by to get to the milk and eggs. And it's that's really the business model for all of them at this point.
Okay. So why go the franchise route? Why not go and open up Bill's Oil Changes and More or something like that? Why not be your own individual? What is the franchise giving you that just opening up as just a small business would not?
Yeah, they had a tremendous process. So an oil change business, it's very important, at least in the franchise strategy, is to be quick, right? They also had checks and balances all through the process. So a big expense if you're not doing a good job is going to be customer claims. They had an incredible brand.
What do you mean by customer claims?
Like if we forgot to put your oil plug back in the car and you drove off, we had to buy you a new engine. Like that's every owner's nightmare.
That happens. Oh my!
It happens. It happens. Or it could be something as simple as We didn't install your windshield wiper on properly, so it makes that little scrape on the window. So you got to replace the windshield. Or it could be we got oil on your car, so we have to pay for a car wash. Just lots of little things like
So
that.
Valvoline has a system to make sure that doesn't happen, or
Yes.
do they cover the losses in case they happen?
No, they have a process. The owner's responsible for the loss. They have a process. It was called Super Pro. It's even branded.
Okay.
It was a very intricate system of checks and balances where you had 3 people on the vehicle. Think of a pit crew. You had somebody talking to the customer. You have somebody working on the engine on the top, and you have somebody underneath in the engine on bottom. And these two, the 2 technicians would double check each other's work through vocal commands, and it was really impressive.
Okay.
The biggest thing the biggest value Valvoline brought, in addition to that, is just the brand. I mean, people trust Valvoline. They have a tremendous brand. They have a lot of equity in that.
Okay.
And if I had opened up a oil change, I would not get near the customers or the brand identification as I got with them.
So, and I'm gonna open up here real quick and look at Valvoline's website here for becoming a franchise owner. So, getting the loan for the property, paying the lease underneath the property, maybe purchasing products from Valvoline directly, like they have certain like McDonald's got to buy the hamburgers directly from McDonald's Corporation. Did you have to purchase things directly from Valvoline as well?
Yes, I mean, you didn't have to, but they had incentives to do that, which is a smart way to do it. So the more you purchased from them, the better your acquisition costs, and it was better than anything you get in the industry. So it was kind of a smart way to control that. And it worked.
They would sell you oil cheaper than like getting it from like from Pennzoil or something else.
Correct.
Right. And it's Valvoline specific oil, correct?
Well, they have others, but it's 90+% Valvoline oil.
Okay, gotcha. And so you purchase from them. You also give them a royalty every month as well. Is that correct? And what is that percentage?
5% when you hit a certain volume level.
Okay. So
you don't have to step. It started at 8%, and as you grow the business, it's discounted down.
So if you only make 100 grand in a year, it's just very low. They would take 8% because you're not making a ton of money yet. But once you're up to 2.5 million, you're now paying 5%, and that's on the gross revenue. Correct?
That's correct.
Not on the after expenses and all that.
That's the top line.
So $1 million comes in the door, and you owe them 50 grand. Is my math right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. So that just goes directly to them for the name. And does any of that go to pay for like advertising or coupons, or is that all done through you?
No, there's a separate marketing fund. Okay, that all the franchises were required to participate in, and that's where most of the marketing. And then I did some on my own, but they were really good at marketing, and they did 90% of the marketing as well. So
in addition to the 5% you pay, what percentage do you pay then for marketing? Is it just like a cost, or is it a percentage every month, or how did that work?
No, I'm trying to remember. It was a dollar amount per store. So I had 16 stores, so I think it came in around 4%.
Okay.
Ad spend.
Okay, so you were spending about 9% between the royalty and the marketing costs to them.
Right.
Okay. Right. And really your oil changes are just are a revenue generator, but they're really not your profit making. So like when they offer me like that oil, the brake flush, I remember they're different ones, and those are all things that you need for your car. I mean, they're and by the way, I might have got it done somewhere else and I didn't realize it. I'm going here because I go to Christian Brothers for like repairs, and then I go to car and they look it up, and they don't know it. It doesn't say on my VIN number that I had it done at Christian Brothers. It just says Toyota recommends that you have this done. Correct? Right. Okay.
That's true for now, but in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, they are affiliated with a company, and my name escapes me right now. Let me give it a minute. That tracks that for all vehicles. Okay, so if you went to Christian Brothers and had your air conditioning service, it now will show up on Valvoline's system. Okay,
interesting. Okay, because they recommended it to me last time I was there, and I was like, I think I have this done, and then I texted my guy over at Christian Brothers, like, hey, we did that for you. I was like, okay, good. So I wasn't sure. He's like, give me a minute, let me check. So you get the one at Valley Ranch. You then start acquiring other franchises. I mean, that's got to be a lot of employees. It's a lot of royalties. It's a lot of mortgage payments. It's a lot of stuff. Like, how do you manage? You had 11 of these, is that right?
No, 16.
16. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you had 16 of these things. Did you hire a guy and he was the paperwork guy for you, or are you running it all yourself?
Yeah, no, I had two district managers. At the end, they had 8 stores apiece. All right. And just to back up, I mean, when I was a corporate guy, I managed like 500 stores at one time. So I had an advantage of knowledge of how to organize it, the importance of training, span of control, all that. So that was another reason I got into this, because I knew the employee type and I knew the business type, which makes your learning curve much shorter.
Right, sure.
I ended up with 200 employees. I had 16 managers, 2 district managers, an administrative assistant, an accountant.
And all in Texas, correct?
All in North Texas. That was as far as Texarkana and as far south as Cleveland.
Okay. And Texas seems to be a great state to run business in as well. It seems to be a good place to operate as well. But how much of the day-to-day stuff were you doing? Were you just primarily meeting with your 2 general managers then? Is that kind of what your job was then?
Yeah, I spent time out in stores, because if you don't go out and visit and talk to the employees, you're getting everything secondhand. It's filtered, right?
Okay.
So I spent time visiting stores. I spent a lot of time looking at numbers and managing the financial side of it. I had an accountant, but I was the de facto CFO. So all the budgeting and planning, all that, I did myself.
Well, it sounds pretty profitable. It sounds like
good.
16 stores. You got guys running this whole thing. You're kind of overseeing the whole thing. Why sell? Why not just keep this train running?
Valvoline came to the market a few years ago and started building stores. And too old a reference for you and your students, but they may be an offer I couldn't refuse. It was just an incredibly good offer.
Okay.
And you don't know if you'll ever see an offer like that again.
Okay.
But I figured it was time.
So they were trying to convert your franchises to corporate stores.
Right.
Correct. Why would they do that? The franchise seems like a great model for them and a great model for you. Why would they do that? They
went public 4 years ago, and they went public based on projections of EBITDA, which is what you buy, right, as an investor.
Mm-hmm.
And while franchising gives you a better ROI on your investment, a lot of that money, the profit goes to the franchisees, right?
Right.
So if I had a store doing $1 million and it made $200,000, Valvoline would get, $18,000, 9% of that.
Yeah.
If they had the store, they'd get $200,000, or they'd get the $300,000, or whatever the bottom line is, which would fuel their growth. Because again, once you're in Wall Street, all they want to see is top line growth.
Right.
So they thought they could grow faster, control it better by owning rather than franchising.
Was it a good move for them?
To be seen, to be determined.
Okay.
Too early.
As a prognosticator, what would you predict?
I think they'll do fine. I think the industry, though, is peaked with EV coming on board, electric vehicles coming on board. It's going to totally change the automotive aftermarket, and not in their favor. They're really working very hard right now trying to figure out how they can service EVs. But that EV industry is so cutting edge and so, it's changing every day. It's hard to get your hands around that.
Because EVs don't have oil.
Correct.
So, and every automaker is going that direction. So it probably was a really good time for you to sell, in considering the rise of Tesla and all the rest of these. I mean, every Super Bowl ad for a car commercial was like the EV model if it was coming out. And so, wow, why would they take on that risk in the looming world of EV cars? That just seems like is it just for short-term gains to impress Wall Street? No,
I mean, EV cars at some point, I guess, will be the only option, but The average combustion driven car is like 11 to 12 years old now. So I don't know what the numbers are, but if there's 300 million people in the country, there's probably, I don't know, a billion cars. They're going to be here for a long, long time. So
Okay.
even if EV took over in 10 years, you still got 10 more years of these cars being built and sold, and they're going to be on the road. So I mean, the automotive aftermarket is based on not the new vehicles, but the second owner vehicles, right? So they're smart people. I'm sure they've got some pretty good numbers saying up to the next 30 years, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, maybe repairing batteries or recharge or
Yeah,
some sort of like
look,
way to do that, or a car or wheels, or I guess Discount Tires doesn't have any problems there, but like other, ones maybe potentially do. Well, man, Bill, this has been fantastic. I had no idea all that went into my average oil change because I have no skills myself. I can't change my own oil. I rely on your types of places to my wife does too, and we're just busy, and this is such a convenient thing, and so great, such great information. Thanks so much for being part of our class.
you bet. Enjoyed it. Thank you. Take care.